Hello Year 3, welcome back to story time. So the last thing we read was Lucy was questioning whether what she saw under the bed was actually a monster, and she was dreaming also about her parents. So let's see what happens next and if the monster thing with the eyes comes back. Chapter 6, the day after. Lucy burst out into the sunlit garden with newfound determination. She didn't want to just dream about her parents for the rest of her life. She wanted them back. Now. That's it, she said to herself. I'm going to find the grown-ups. And with that, she tightened the straps of her dungarees, slicked her fringe over and marched out into Clutter Avenue. But something very strange stopped Lucy in her tracks. The disaster movie that Whiffington had looked like the night before wasn't quite as disastrous this morning. The town actually looked relatively tidy. That's odd, Lucy said to herself, noticing that all the loo roll had been cleared from the streets. The overflowing bins on the street were now empty and the pavement looked as though it had been swept clean. Where'd all the rubbish go? Lucy whispered to herself, searching in her head for any possibilities. She was so deep in thought that she didn't see it. Lucy gasped as something suddenly tightened around her ankle, like a snake wrapping itself around her leg. Then, before she could do anything about it, she was flipped upside down, yanked straight off the ground and found herself swinging in the air. She was hanging by her foot from a rope tied to a large tree in someone's front garden. Gotcha! Norman cried as he sprang out from behind the hedge, his scout uniform covered in leaves and twigs. He also had a camouflage badge, which was so hard to find on his uniform, even he'd forgotten where he'd sewn it. When he saw Lucy, his face fell. Oh, it's you. Yes, it's me, and now get me down, Lucy demanded. Sorry, I thought you were those boys, you know, the ones from school, Norman said, as he cut Lucy free, letting her fall on her head. Ouch, Lucy said. Boys, what boys? You know, the ones that laugh at me, Norman mumbled. Oh, Lucy said, suddenly feeling a little bit bad for shouting at him. They've been throwing eggs at my house since the grown-ups disappeared, so I set some traps for them, Norman said with pride. Lucy stood up and dusted herself off. Whoa, she said, looking around Norman's front garden, which she now saw he turned into a fully functioning campsite. There was a hammock tied between the tree and the drain pipe on Norman's house, a sundial made of sticks and stones, and scattered along the entire perimeter was an assortment of handmade snares and traps like the one Lucy had managed to get caught in. There was a campfire with a pan of beans boiling to a bubble on top, and around it some wooden chairs carved from a tree trunk. Did you make those? Lucy asked. Norman nodded, indicating a woodwork badge on his uniform. And I put that up by myself, he added, pointing to an enormous green tent pitched on the grass nearby. It was large enough to sleep 10 people at least, Lucy thought, although through the opening she could see just one single transformer sleeping bag. Why are you sleeping out here, though, and not in your bedroom? Lucy asked. Norman suddenly looked a bit embarrassed. Well, it's a little silly, really, he said, staring at his feet. What is it? Lucy asked. Oh, it's nothing. I just had a funny dream and got a bit frightened, Lucy asked, but no one was saved from having to answer by the voice that came crashing down the street towards him. Look, it's Nibble Norman, called a scruffy kid as he and 2 more boys on bikes whizzed past. Ab Norman's got a girlfriend. Hey, love nerds, eat this, one of them yelled as the 3 boys hurled eggs at Norman and Lucy. Oh dear. Quick, hold this, Norman ordered, shoving a metal shield into Lucy's hands. She instinctively held it up in front of her head, feeling the thud, splat of eggs cracking on impact. See you losers later, the bike boys cackled as they wheelied off into the distance. Are you okay? Lucy said, lowering the egg-covered shield. Me? Yeah, I'm used to it, Norman said, shrugging off the moment. but Lucy could tell by the little twitch of his lips that he was upset. Lucy had never really taken the time to get to know Norman at school. Of course, she knew who he was. Everyone did. He was the geeky kid, the one who no one wanted to sit next to at lunch or get paired with in PE, the one who brought a packed lunch instead of eating school dinners, and the one who climbed to the top of the tallest tree and stayed there all the way through break, watching birds through his binoculars. He was different. Lucy suddenly remembered what her dad would say. "You know, it's the different people who make a difference," she told him. Norman blushed. "Yeah, and they get free breakfast," he replied. "Huh?" "Eggs," Norman smiled, taking the shield away from Lucy and showing her that it was actually a large frying pan. She laughed as Norman held it over the campfire and began to fry the eggs.